Hi students, my name is Mrs. Schreiber and today we're going to do a lesson on summarizing. First of all, don't forget to bring a pencil or paper, have something handy to write with or write on. And also at the end of my lesson, I'll have a QR code and it will have my extension activity directions as well as another passage called Mark's Lucky Ice Cream and other ways that you can practice summarizing with the skills that we use today. So don't forget, if you don't have that QR app, you can go ahead and download that on your phone and it's free. Also, our code, our secret word for today is spring. So let's get started today by doing a refueling break. Bring it down. It's from Go Noodle.
This exercise will teach you how to gain control of your stressful energy when it gets too high to handle. Close your eyes, listen, and follow along. Or keep your eyes open and follow along that way. It's up to you. Sit tall. You can be on the ground with your legs crossed, or in your chair with your feet flat on the floor. Now imagine that you can look up and see the sky. And up in the sky, way up in the sky, is a balloon. If you'd like, you can choose a color for your balloon. Keep the picture of the balloon in your mind. The balloon's string reaches all the way down to your hands. Hold on to the string. Imagine that you can feel the pull of that big balloon. Imagine that the wind pushes it from side to side. Or imagine that the wind actually tries to pull the balloon higher into the sky. Maybe you can feel the gentle tugging of the string in your hands. Now try to bring your balloon down. Be careful to go slowly. You don't want the fragile string to break from pulling too hard or too quickly. Take your time. Imagine that you can gently pull the string, hand over hand. The string collects in a pile at your feet. Hand over hand, pull after gentle pull. The balloon appears to come closer. It might even become easier to bring it down in your mind as it gets closer to you. Keep bringing it down, closer and closer. Some other strings might be longer or shorter than yours, and that's okay. Just bring it down at your speed. Focus on your balloon. Keep bringing it down. Your colorful balloon may now be within your reach. Pretend that you do not need to use the string anymore. You can actually hold the balloon between your hands. Notice if you can feel the balloon in your hands. Be gentle. Imagine that with your next out-breath, you can open your hands and release your balloon. Let it go. Notice in your mind where it goes. It could be different for everyone. Just remain still for a few more moments and watch your balloon drift away.
All right, so let's get started with our standard today. The standard that we'll focus on is 4RL 2.2. It states to paraphrase or retell the main events in a story, myth, legend, or novel. Identify the theme and provide evidence for the interpretation. So I say, you say. I'll say a word and you repeat after me. I can paraphrase or retell the main events in a story. Good job. All right, so as I stated earlier, we need to have a pencil and paper and something to write with, and I want you to jot down a few notes as you watch this video to either tell me some words or phrases that you see that would be important when we're doing a summary. All right, so these words here are some that you probably wrote down whenever you were watching that video. Say them with me. Somebody, wanted, but, so, and then. There's also some questions that go along with that. Somebody, who was the main character? Wanted, what did the character want? But, what was the problem or the conflict in the story? So, how did the character try to solve the problem? And then, what was the resolution to the story? While I'm reading The Lonely Star, I want you to think about these words and the questions and what you would write as an answer for these questions. So again, the main character, what did the character want? What was the problem? How did the character try to solve the problem? And what was the resolution to the story? So you need that pencil and paper again. Lonely Star. Astrid was only 300 years old, and therefore still just a kid when it came to the heavenly bodies in her galaxy. It was quiet out in space, and Astrid's neighbors were light years away, much too far to be able to have a conversation, let alone become friends. She was a beautiful star, twinkling so prettily that she was admired from afar by the populations of animals and humanoids and alien beings on the planets far below her. But the truth was, she was lonely. Every few decades, somebody might pass by, and Astrid would feel hopeful. A long time ago, a satellite went sailing past her, but when she called out a happy greeting, it answered her gruffly in Russian and continued on its way. The only thing close to a friend she'd had was a comet who would come close enough during her orbit to talk for a short while. Her name was Haley, but she only came by every 79 years or thereabouts, so it was a long time between visits. Astrid missed her. More recently, a funny-looking fellow with wheels, solar panels, and cameras crossed her path, and they chatted briefly while they could. His name was Rover, he'd said, and he was on his way to Mars for an important scientific mission. Astrid had hoped to see him again, but she never did. The star tried to keep herself busy. She learned several alien languages. She practiced math and physics every day, and she studied the constellations. She also daydreamed a lot, rotating slowly on her axis, humming songs to herself. Her voice was the only thing she could hear in space. The vastness around her was completely silent. In the distance, a flare of red light was leaving a trail through the cosmos. Astrid perked up. Could that be Haley? Had it been 79 years already? The star glowed as brightly as she could, welcoming her old friend. Haley finally got close enough to talk. "Good to see you, Astrid," she called out. "You too," called the young star. "It's been so quiet around here." They had a long conversation about all the news in the solar system over the past century. But too soon, Haley had to once again continue on her way. Astrid couldn't hide her disappointment. "It's so long between visits, Haley. I'm going to be lonely again without you." "Cheer up, Astrid," said the comet. "I have a thought. I've picked up several new meteorites in my tail over the last few decades, and I could shake a few off so they could stay in your orbit and keep you company." "That would be wonderful," cried Astrid. She wouldn't be alone anymore. Haley shook her tail and several large meteorites floated loose and headed toward the star. "These guys are a lot of fun," Haley said. "They broke off from the moon near planet Lollyha, where those crazy lollyhands often visited. So, of course, the meteorites learned all the funniest jokes and the best songs. They will be great company for you. See you next century." Astrid thanked Haley profusely, and even before the comet was out of sight, the little star was already giggling at the silly jokes her new friends were sharing. So we're going to use this graphic organizer today. You see that I have somebody, wanted, but, so, and then written at the top. So what I want you to do on your paper is I want you to write those same words and draw a line underneath them, and then draw lines between each word. That way you have a graphic organizer that looks similar to mine. All right, so now that you have all those words written and you have your graphic organizer, let's get started. So who's the main character? So if you were with us the other day, we went over some of these same questions when we were reading the same story, but we're going to go through them again. So who is the main character? We know that it was Astrid. She was said throughout the story, and so we know that she is our main character. So we're going to put Astrid right here underneath the word somebody, answering this question. What did the character want? That's our next question. So we know that Astrid, throughout the story, what she wanted the whole time was just to have a friend. And so we look back in our first paragraph and we know that she wanted friends. So we're going to add the word friends to our graphic organizers under the word wanted. So right now we've answered somebody, wanted. Let's look at the word but. What was the problem or the conflict in our story? Well, looking back in our passage, we know that Astrid was lonely. She was a lonely star because she was all out in space and no one was around her. So let's add she was lonely underneath the column but. Moving on to so. How did they try to solve the problem? So how did Astrid try to solve her problem of being lonely? We look throughout this story. If we come back to the beginning and into the middle of our story, we know that she was friends with Haley, but Haley only came by every 79 years or thereabouts. So Haley was around, but not somebody that she could talk to every single day. And that's what Astrid was really longing for. We also know that another way that she tried to solve her problem is that she ran into Rover. And she really hoped that he was going to stay around or that he'd come back, but he never did. So then she tried to just keep herself busy. She learned alien languages. She practiced math and physics. She was studying the constellations. She was daydreaming and singing to herself. all trying to keep herself busy since she was so lonely. So in our column for so, she tried to become friends with others as they passed by and also kept busy learning new things. We can add that underneath the word so. So far, you should have written down all of this and your graphic organizer would look just like mine. We've answered somebody, wanted, but, so, and now we're on to the word then. So what is the resolution to our problem? Again, if you were with us the other day, you probably remember that the way that Astrid solved her problem was Haley coming up with a thought. She said she's picked up several new meteorites in her tail over the last few decades, and she could shake them off so she could stay in her orbit and keep Astrid company. So adding in the column then, Haley shook off some meteorites from her tail to keep Astrid company. So again, your graphic organizer should look just like mine. Now let's write our summary with our evidence that we gathered from our graphic organizer. When we write a summary, we know that we want our reader of our summary to know what story we're actually reading. So we're going to start off by indenting, and an indentation is when you come in about 5 spaces into your first line. So we're going to start off by saying in Lonely Star. Lonely Star is the title of our story. And then we're going to start off by saying somebody. And who is the somebody? It's Astrid. Then we want to tell our reader what she wanted. And we know that Astrid wanted friends. So far we've answered somebody and wanted. Our next word is but. But what was her problem or the conflict? That she was lonely. So we've got somebody, wanted, but. Our next word is so. So what did Astrid try to do to solve her problem? She tried to become friends with others as they passed by and also kept busy learning new things. So we've got somebody, wanted, but, so, and our final word is then. Then, how did her problem get resolved? Haley shook off some meteorites from her tail to keep Astrid company. So here's our summary using our graphic organizer. Let's see what this sounds like all together. In Lonely Star, Astrid wanted friends, but she was lonely, so she tried to become friends with others as they passed by and also kept busy learning new things. Then Haley shook off some meteorites from her tail to keep Astrid company. If you notice in our summary, we have stated the beginning, the middle, and the end all in our paragraph. So here's my extension activity. It's called a book jacket redesign. Here are some examples of different pictures of book jacket covers that other students have made. The materials that you need are a piece of paper, construction paper, scissors, markers, crayons, color pencils, anything to write with, and glue. Again, you might not have all these things at your house and you don't need all of them. You really just need some kind of paper, whether it's construction paper or a piece of white paper, and you need something like crayons or markers or glue. And you can also use just tearing paper if you don't have scissors, or you can use tape if you don't have any glue at home. So imagine that you just finished reading your favorite book and the author called or texted you and asked you to make a new book jacket cover for your book. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to get your piece of paper and fold it in half, and then you're going to create a book jacket front cover. And your drawing should be the setting, so you can see here that I've made the setting like what the Lonely Star had. And also you want to make sure you include the title and the author if you know it. Then I also put my star, Astrid, my main character, and I had my Haley comet. So again, I use some of the supplies that were on there, but I also added some supplies that I had at home that I just found around my house. The second step is you're gonna fill in your graphic organizer like we practiced today. So we have my column somebody, wanted, but, so, and then. And you're gonna fill that in with whatever book or novel that you're reading at the time. And on the back, using the same graphic organizer, we're gonna make our summary for our story. And finally, you can share it with your friends and family. You can FaceTime people, or you can, share it with just the family and friends that are in your house. And the last thing that I have is a QR code. Remember at the beginning, I told you to get out your phone and maybe you want to download the app. Now's your chance. You can scan my QR code and you'll be able to get the directions for my extension activity if you want to do it with another book that you're reading now or that you're about to read. And also there is the other passage called Mark's Lucky Ice Cream, and then some activities that you can use with summarizing. So you can practice these same things with making your graphic organizer and writing a summary with that passage. Thanks so much for joining me, and don't forget our secret word for the day is spring, and thank you so much.